go through this image. We might even do a couple. So basically this was an image that I took a couple of weeks ago. It's Chiara. It was shot in this lovely bush setting that we found. And it was lit with a B1. You can see the actual, let me just open this up through here. Where are we? Just scribble. Don't remind me. You can see that there's actually, the edge of the flash is actually sitting up there. And that's just basically there to give a little bit of fill on the front of Chiara. It was actually quite dark. But when I say that, it was, the light was constantly changing. But I did want to make sure that I didn't expose or lose the white flowers, and that's the thing that I was mostly interested in here, and also the white of her top. So you can see that I've exposed for that. Plus, I also wanted to try the high-speed sync for the camera as well, because this was the first weekend where I could use the TTL, because the Pro Photo with the latest Sony updates is you can now use it with the Pro Photo gear. And I've also been told too that it now works with the 6500 as well. So anyone interested in the Pro Photo side, you can now use TTL and HSS on the A6500. So that's now just being released as well. But let's have a look. So this is straight out of camera. Again, I'm not hiding anything from you guys. Remember, I always shoot a little bit on the dark side when I'm shooting. I always like to underexpose a little bit, because I know I'm going to bring those shadows actually back in later. And the thing for me, which is critical, is that I want to make sure that I keep those highlights, like I said, in the flowers and also in her top. So that was really important for me when I did this, that I didn't lose that. So let's have a look at what we do with this first. So I'm doing this with you guys, so we can all do it together. So I'm going to do a little bit probably in Photoshop, in Lightroom, and then we might go over into Photoshop, because I want to clone out obviously the reflector that's there, or the light modifier that I've got from my Pro Photo B1. So first off, when we're looking at this was, if you look at the settings, let me just move that over so you can see them. The settings there were 1/640th of a second at f1.8. I'm on ISO 100, and I'm using the 85mm Batis. So I'm using the Batis wide open. And like I said, I wanted to use 1/640th of a second because I was testing to see how the high-speed sync actually went with this camera. Now, the beauty is, this was with the A9, so I'm not going to have as much recovery as I've got with my A7R2, but I've allowed for that because I haven't underexposed anywhere near what I would sometimes with the A7R2, because I know I've got a stop difference in exposure using the A7R2. So what I'm going to do though, I am going to drag up the exposure a little bit to basically get a more uniform look on this. Now, like I said, you have got a lot of leeway that we can bring this up, but I want to make sure that when I'm bringing this up that I am maintaining the highlights, because I want to make sure that I'm not going to drag any of that detail out of the highlights. You can see it's lovely and sharp. Let me just build it. Yeah, it's lovely and sharp. Now, there's no sharpening done on this yet. That will be done later. I think we'll just do a little bit of retouching actually in Photoshop. Let me just bring this back out. So let's have a look. So basically all I've done is lifted the highlights up a little bit, and I'm also going to grab up the shadows just a touch, just to lift her hair. Now you'll notice if we're looking at in her hair area there, it's a little bit dark. So if I bring the shadows up a little bit, I'm going to lift those shadow areas as well, just to get a little bit of shadow coming inside those areas as well. Now, because this is so green and stuff, I do want to target. I'm not going to worry about clarity. I may lift the vibrance a little bit. Now, vibrance, the difference too between vibrance is a slider that you should use a lot, because vibrance tries to protect the skin tones. So that's a great slider if you want to actually try and increase color, but it will try and protect skin tones that are in the color. The difference is I can drag the slider up, and you'll notice that her skin tones don't change much at all. Whereas if I was using the saturation, you'll notice straight away what happens to her skin tone at the same time. So you've got to be very careful if you're using saturation. Saturation I usually use if I wanted to convert something to black and white, something like that. And you can see that there. We'll just take out the saturation overall. But if I want to give this a bit of a kick, I would probably just use the saturation to bring that up a little bit in the greens. Now, you don't want to go too far, but just to bring it up a little bit in the greens. And then you can also target greens as well. If you're on color down here, you can actually choose greens, and then you could actually just affect the saturation of just the greens and keep everything else the same tone. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to give the greens just a little bit of a lift because I want that nice green look about this. And again, that's only targeting the greens. If I wanted to target another color, I could just use these dialogue boxes through here and change the color. For instance, if it was just the red I wanted to affect, I could just choose a red or yellow, whatever. That's a good way of just colorizing certain things. Like I said, I'm not going to worry about anything else here at this stage. I could probably put vignettes in and stuff like that, but I may do that in Photoshop, and I'll show you how I do that in Photoshop in a minute. The noise is pretty good on this because obviously it's ISO 100, so I don't have to worry about noise. And I'm not going to alter the curve here either because I'm going to do that in Photoshop if I need to do some corrections there. So really all I've done is I've just added the exposure, just plus 1.10. I've increased the shadows a little bit. I haven't touched the highlights because I've allowed for that in my exposure. And I've just increased the vibrance a little bit, and I've also increased the saturation of just the greens. So I'm quite happy with that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open this up in Photoshop. So all I do is go edit in, and we'll bring it up in Photoshop. Once again, guys, too, if you have any questions on what I'm doing or whatever, leave them in the question box because we'll have a discussion on this a little bit later. I've just got to wait for this to open up and then make it the same size as Lightroom so you can see it. All right, so let's make that a bit smaller and come into there. All right, so basically, let me have a look. Do I need to? I might move that up just a touch. All right, so basically that's it. Now at this stage, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that light box that you're seeing up here. So what I'm going to do here, I think I can probably make it a bit smaller so you can see the whole thing. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to basically, I always duplicate on a layer, so I'm just pressing Apple J to duplicate a new layer. Let me move me so you can see what's going on. I'll just don't do that. So I've got now a new layer under there. Now all I'm going to do basically here is I'm going to select, I'll try this first. I'm just going to do a rough outline around that area. And then all I'm going to do is go up to the edit menu at the top. I'll move this again so you can see it all. I need to make this smaller, I think. I'm going to go up to the edit menu at the top. No, you still can't see it. I don't think you're going to be able to see that actually. Oh, let me see if I can reduce the size. That might work. Yeah, that'll work. I think. I just want you all to be able to see a little bit better. That might work now. All right, so let's go up to, let me just move this. All right, so we'll go to Edit, and I'm going to go to Fill. And if you're on Fill, the way to get rid of this quickly, and I always try this first, is to use the Content Aware. So basically, if I bring up Content Aware, and I just say OK, hopefully it will get rid of it immediately, and it's not done a bad job, as you can see there. There's a little bit of an issue with that stick, but I'm going to edit that out and I'll have a look. No worries, Tony, you got to go to bed. I don't blame you. It's very late for you guys. So now I'm just going to go delete, and I'm going to grab the clone tool, and I'm actually going to grab up through here and then just start to edit out these little areas just to make it look a bit more uniform. And I'm also going to take out this bit of a branch because I don't like it. So let's get rid of that. All right, so I've got rid of that little bit of a branch there as well. Oops, just gone full screen. Got to be careful I don't go full screen. All right, so let me bring that back up. Now, the first thing I want to do now is just have a look at the face itself, because I might add just a little bit more contrast on that face. So I'm going to go to Curves, and I'm going to grab. Now, if you look at it, I can grab this little dialog box up here, and that means that I can just drag her face. And if I bring that up, I'm just going to drag the face up just to have a little bit brighter. And then I'm actually going to press Apple J, which oops, it's not Apple J. Let me just undo that. I've got to select the actual layer itself and invert that. It's hard because I'm so used to using quick keys, but I'm going to actually have it. If I don't do it for you, just let me try it and see. I want to make it actually black. Filter type, because I don't want to do it with quick keys because you won't know what I'm doing. I want to inverse it. Where is it in here? I just have to do it the way I know, which is just pressing Apple I. I don't know what the key is up there to actually do it. Now, when I press Apple I, you'll notice what happens to that layer. It goes from white to black. All right, so it's actually gone black. Now I want that because all I want to affect is the face. So then if I grab a brush and I actually go to the white, make sure I'm on white to fill, I can then just paint in her face area just to make that a little bit brighter. A little bit brighter than it was before. Now I just want to have a quick look at her skin just to see if there's anything I'm going to take off. Now remember, I don't want to do too much here with the skin because it looks pretty good in itself, but I'll just show you here. Let's just get rid of this little mark. I'm just going to make another layer here. I'm just going to get rid of these little marks. And again, I might do some frequency separation on this just because see where she's got a bit of a mark through here. There's a couple of different ways that I could tackle that. But what I'm going to do is just do a little bit of frequency separation. So I'm just going to flatten this first. Now remember, if you go back to my previous videos, you'll be able to see where that how I do the frequency separation because I gave a whole tutorial on that. So you're basically going to be able to use that. You can upload that. I'll send it to you if you email me again. I think I've still got it saved on my desktop, but you'd have to email me to actually get it. So I'm going to bring that frequency separation up. Now I'm going to go to my actual, where are we? Because I can't do it the way I normally do. I want to go to, where are we? Window. Where is my actions? Now the one I'm going to bring up is actually the frequency separation. Let me just move all these. So it's this frequency separation one. I just have to click on play. It's done it down here. Let me just hide that again. Now it gives you a blur layer, texture layer. Like I said, I'm not going to go through this all again with you because you can see that if you actually go through that tutorial. Then all basically I'm just going to do is to come through these areas and just do a little bit of frequency separation. Now I'm not going to do heaps on this. If I go to filter, blur and Gaussian blur, and then I've just got to work out the amount. You can see if I go too far it goes a bit weird. I'm just going to put enough in just to soften it just a little bit. So it's about 8 there probably will do. Then deselect it. I'll bring this up so you can see it a little bit better. Again, I'm just going to come through the nose area. Again, just go to filter, Gaussian blur. I don't have to change this now because I know the settings are correct. Come down here. Now you're better off to do this in stages rather than in one big go. You just seem to get a bit of a better result doing it this way. Again, I'll just come through here, finish this little bit. And I've also got this on feather as well. You can notice I've got a 20 pixel feather. That just gives it a bit of a softer edge than if you're trying to do this with in one go. Let's do a little bit through here. Now I could spend hours doing this properly, but I'm not going to. I'm giving you guys just an idea about how I'm actually editing this. I'll do it down to there. And let's move this down a bit. I'll just do this a little bit here. Gaussian Blur again. Good day to all the people that are just dropping in to say hi. Any questions, guys, leave them, because I'll pull them up at the end and I can answer any questions that you've got. Filter Gaussian Blur. And I might just do this arm as well. Let me just grab this out of the way. I'll do this just big to save time. Again, like I said, this is very clean anyway. 100 ISO. You shouldn't have much noise or anything like that, but it just basically smooths everything out. And then I can use, because this is on its own layer, I could then use a reduction in the opacity to take it off a little bit if I didn't want so much actually involved with it. Like I said, if I want to turn it off, you can sort of see the before and after here. And again, if you think it's too much, you can just reduce that opacity just a little bit down to sort of get an image or a look that you actually like with the image itself. Now, I'm now going to group this, and the keys that I always use to make a new layer above, linked to everything underneath, is the Apple Option Command and E. Will give you a layer built with everything back on top. And now I'm just going to sharpen. So basically what I'm going to do, if anyone's interested in this, I'll try and work out the exact, I made up this action for it, and I'm using Kubota image tools to get all my actions actually coming over. I've got my favorite actions listed in here. And I'm just going to go, at this stage, Sharpen. I use the Sharpen KFP Magic Sharpen. That's one that I've bought. I can't remember where I bought it from, but it was from somewhere. And again, if you look at the, before I'll show you in a second, how much that will bring out that detail and that sharpness. If I turn this off, you can see that it's lifted it and just made it a lot sharper. And again, I'll just look at some of the face. Some of these little areas may have to be just retouched. I'm just going to use the selection tool to do that, and I'm just going to basically go over just a few of these. You want the skin to still look like skin, so you don't want to give too much retouching on these areas where, you know, you don't want it to actually look like it's still skin. There's a couple of things here, and this is where I become a bit of a perfectionist though. There's a couple of areas of this image that are actually worrying me a little bit, in the fact that it's got this little bit of a dark area under her eyes. So I'm going to fix that up. And again, I'm just going to make a new layer. I'm just going to press Apple J. And I'm going to use the Magic one or the clone stamp tool, and I'm just going to put it on lighten. And if you look at it, I'll make it a little bit bigger. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to basically light just this area through here. And again, I'm just going to do it through here as well. And that will just give it a bit of a lift. Now, to make sure that it doesn't look unrealistic, you then have to drop the opacity down a little bit, somewhere in between. And if you look at them, you can see here that that's before and that's after. Again, all it's done is just getting rid of that little bit of shading that's underneath her eyes. So I'm going to bring it down to a point where I'm actually reasonably happy with how that's looking. And again, there's a little bit of noise still coming through here, so I might just see if I can lighten that up again. So I'm just going to create a new layer again. I'm going to just drag. I'm going to go back to, we'll try this first. We'll actually try the, I can't remember, I can never remember the name of the tools. Well, you'll know which one I'm using anyway. I'm just going to see if I can grab this and just make it a little bit softer. And again, you can drag this down in the opacity to make it blend in a little bit more. I'm pretty happy with how that's starting to look. Again, I could have had a little bit more frequency separation, but like I said, what you've got to be careful of here is that you don't take out too much of the skin tone, which is not what you want to actually do if you're looking at it. And you know, I'm quite happy with how that's actually looking. I think it's quite pretty in itself now. If you might find too, I could possibly get rid of this area through here if I wanted to get rid of these sort of browner branches that may be there, so I could probably clone those out as well. I might even try that actually. So let's just see if we can get rid of that. Sometimes you can just actually use the patch tool like this, grab an area, just got to find an area that's suitable, and you can basically get rid of that area then, and then just sort of, you know, move. Oop, I don't want to move that one. If you wanted to, just let me undo that. You could also probably put a couple of these flowers inside there if you wanted to make it look so it's not so vacant in itself, just to add a little bit of interest in those areas, which just gives it a little bit of a kick in itself. And basically, you know, that's it. So if I save that, let's flatten that image. Just go to File, Save As. Save, I mean. Let me close that down, and then we'll compare the retouched one. I usually put retouched as a 5. If we go to here, that's your before, that's the after. Let me go to library. It's the before, after, and if we click on here, they're the two images. I wonder if I can blow that up a bit. So basically that's how I would edit it. Now again, this has had touching done. Let me bring this back to normal where you would have seen it before. So let me bring that down, that down, that down, and the saturation back down. So this was the original, and then this is the retouched. If I go back to library, you'll see there how I've taken the image from what it was initially to where I'm quite happy with it. Now, like I said, I then may add a vignette onto this too if I wanted to. Like I could bring this up in Lightroom and I could start to add vignettes and things on this if I wanted to. I'm just going to use I'll just use a preset. If I wanted to use, say, something like that, just to draw the attention more into the center of the image, I could just do that. And I'm quite happy with that now, and I'll be quite happy now to share that. So let me know what you think, guys. Let me know what you think about that. G'day, Ben. Nice to see you here as well. Chantel's there. Oh, hi, Chantel. Is back again. Like I said, Tony's gone to bed. Don't blame him. It's very, very late. BMB Film says nice. So any questions before we go? I just thought I'd have a quick little session with you so you could sort of see how I can edit stuff. And basically, I might do a few more of these over the coming weeks to sort of let you know how I'm editing. But you can see basically there wasn't a great change from outside of the camera. I have allowed initially when I've exposed that a little bit under because it's just the way I like to be, and it just takes one slider to bring that basically up. Remember, I wanted to make sure that I kept all that detail inside her dress. The critical things for me were that I kept all this detail that's inside here and even all the detail in the flowers, because I wanted to make sure that all of those details, you can see even here that they're starting to clip in some of these spots. That's why you've got to be very, very careful in how much you edit an image. So, you know, just keep it, yeah, and like Sam said, it looks good, keep it simple, and that's the way I work too most of the time, Sam. I mean, some of these, obviously, that I do are really edited, and they're the ones where I will take an image and take it to somewhere else completely, and that's more the artistic side that I like to do. But this side is more just doing one shot, a little bit underexposing for protecting the highlights, and then bring all this back later on in the shadows and everything else later on for your editing. So let me just bring this up. And so any questions, guys, before we finish? Let me just bring this up and I'll just see if there is any. Let's have a look. Most people are just saying g'day. Scissorboy5 said g'day, David. Finally able to join your live show. Keep up your good work. Thanks so much for that. Sam said, yes, good. Looks good. Keep it simple. Ragesh said, greetings from Amazon. G'day, how are you? So is there any last questions, guys, before we finish? Otherwise, I'm going to head off. I've got some more editing to do. I want to actually post some of these girls' images in a minute. If you can, join us on Facebook too. There's a photography and videography fusion group that I've set up. All you guys are welcome to join, and you will get a... I will put you in straight away as soon as you're actually asked to join, because it's for people like you that are learning with me. B&B Film said, hi, how are you, mate? So yeah, so try and join that because you'll see these images. I also put a lot of the behind the scenes inside that Facebook as well, where you'll see the before and the after, and that's a great way. You often won't see that on YouTube, but you will see it on in Facebook. So yeah, join us there. You'll see more of these things, and you also get a update about when I'm actually going to go live too. So that's often put in there too. All right, guys, if there's no more questions, I might call it a day, get back to the editing. I just thought I'd give a quick upload for all of you, and I'll see you all again soon for the next video. Catch you later, guys. Bye for now.